One of the biggest tragedies in life is not knowing who we are, not knowing who we really are. Many of us might think we know who we are, but deep down we're not really sure. Are we really white, or black, or Asian? Well, no, because we couldn't choose our race when we arrived in this world. What about our nationality then? Can we say we are American, or French, or Chinese? Again, the answer is still no. We did not have a say as to where exactly in the world we would be born. Now, you might start guessing where I'm going with this, and conclude that your true or real self is based on personal attributes or identifiers that you can actually control. For example, where you live, what faith you believe in, what political party you identify with, or even what music you listen to. These are all things that you can, for the most part, choose with full freedom. But if that's what you're thinking, then what about when you actually move? What happens when you change your faith or your political allegiance? What becomes of you when your music tastes naturally evolve? Now, I don't know about you, but my taste in music has definitely changed over time. In fact, you could have called me a lot of things back then, from a hip-hopper to a metalhead, and even a classical enthusiast, depending on which stage of my life you are actually looking at. So it's fair to say that my musical interests have definitely changed over time. But does that mean that I changed? Does that mean my essence changed? And of course, the answer is still no. Because it's one thing for the surface layer of something to change, and quite another for its essence to change. Your surface layer can change 1,000,000 times, but your true essence, the part that many of us have still not found, never changes. For example, a white light bulb will only emit white light. Every time you flip that light switch on, it will always be white. But if you wrap a blue cover around the bulb, it will all of a sudden look blue. And if you wrap a red cover around it, then it will look red. And you can change the color of that wrapper to every single color there is and end up with a different result. But at the end of the day, the light bulb will always emit white light. It will never change. And similarly, our essence, or who we really are at our core, never changes. We might wear or wrap around different covers, giving us the appearance of changing on the surface, when in truth our essence never changes. And it is this unchanging and eternal self that we're going to be exploring further in this video, which is part 2 of the series Awakening Beyond Ego. Now, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, then I suggest you save this video for later and watch that video first, because it will give you a really good sense and understanding of what the ego or the false self really is. Of course, we have to know what we are not before we can understand what we actually are. And I think part 1 does a good job of introducing the topic of the series, which is awakening beyond what we are not, so that we can find and embody our true selves. But if you have already watched part 1, and you feel like you are ready for this next part, then welcome. I'm really excited about this video, because it will take us one step closer to finally discovering our true self. Specifically, this video will help us understand the nature of our true self and how it differs from our ego. So let's go ahead and begin our exploration. For years, the ego has been cramming thoughts in our head about who we are based on certain labels, like our race, nationality, and religion. And yet, all this time, we have been told one big lie. None of these labels point to our essence, and yet we accept them without question. And in doing so, we have forgotten who we truly are. Now, this forgetting might not sound like a big deal at first, but what if I told you that you don't have to suffer mentally or emotionally anymore? What if I told you that you can be free of your thoughts and live from a place of eternal peace and calm? Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? The truth is, these aren't just imaginary states. They are actually real outcomes we can experience when we discover and align with our true self. Embodying our true self may sound like a difficult endeavor at first, but it's really just returning back to the core of who we always are and who we always have been before the ego got involved. It's a bit like embodying the persons or essence that God sees. Do you think the divine really looks at where you went to school, or what job you have, or how you look on the surface? Of course not. God looks at what is inside you. The Creator looks at how clean your heart is, how pure your thoughts and actions are, and whether or not you are ultimately growing as a person and awakening to your true reality. The rest is all superficial. We may appear, behave, and live differently than one another, but we are all alike in one major way, and that is that we have a soul. We have an essence. This is the most fundamental level of who we really are. And this soul came from none other than God. So when we connect with our soul, we are actually connecting with God. We each have a part of the divine that represents who we truly are, but our desires and pursuits in life have made us forget this essence. They have made us forget who we really are beyond all the mental constructs, ideas, and beliefs the ego has created. Because imagine right now if you didn't have a single thought. Imagine if you didn't speak a single word. This would be your true essence. This is the very core of your being. Now, I know it's sometimes hard to put this into words, but maybe we can look at a slightly different example that can help us better understand this message. Let's take a glass of water for a moment. Even if you transfer that water into a cup, it is still the same water. Nothing has changed. In this analogy, our true self is like the water. It never changes no matter how old we get, what views or beliefs we have, or what stage of our life we are in. But the container holding that water, or the mind and body, is constantly changing. The mind and body you had as a 5-year-old is not the same as when you were 10 or 30 or 50, but your soul is. That same soul that lived in the newborn you is the same one that lives in the you now. This is what spiritual teachers mean when they say you are beyond life and death. You are pure consciousness, which has no sense of time, space, or identity. And this is why we don't look in the mirror or think endless thoughts when we try to connect with our true self. It's because our true self can't be found through our 5 senses or our thoughts. thoughts and senses can point us in the right direction, but they are never the end of the journey. The journey to our soul is something that must be experienced directly to actually understand. We must focus our attention inward until we observe something that is deeper than who we thought we are. In other words, we are seeking the water inside the glass, not the glass itself. Because guess what? The container surrounding you can not only change, it can also be destroyed. Imagine what happens when you drop that glass of water. The glass shatters into 100 pieces and is never the same again, even if you try to glue it all together. Just like every day, the mind and body are never the same. They become older, weaker, and eventually give way. But the same cannot be said of the soul, because even though the glass may shatter when it falls onto the ground, the water, quite simply, never shatters. It can never be destroyed. It's still there, just maybe a little bit more spilled and displaced everywhere, instead of all put nicely together inside a crate. But you could just as easily suck all that water up from the floor and put it back into another glass. This is the real message I want to convey. Too often do we spend so much time identifying with the glass or the cup that we lose sight of the fact that we have been the water all along. In fact, you don't need to subscribe to a particular faith or set of beliefs to recognize that you are more than just the mind and body. You are more than the ego. Your essence is beyond any external factor or label that you can sense or perceive. So why then is this so hard for many of us to realize? Why do we forget about our true self in the first place? Well, the answer is that the ego doesn't want us to discover our true self. It doesn't want us to come to the ultimate realization that we don't need it to live our life. Because once we discover our true self, there really is no need for a false self anymore. The ego is only helpful to the extent that it can make us aware of our true self and nothing more. Its only purpose is to push us to the brink of hopeless suffering until it becomes too much to bear. And this suffering comes from living a life that is not in full alignment with our true self. This suffering can appear in many forms, such as pursuing materialistic things, feeling empty inside, and having a general lack of happiness and fulfillment from life. The truth is, we all have a tremendous capacity to endure this suffering to some degree, but at some point or another, that suffering will eventually break us down, and we will have no choice but to examine the kind of life we are living, and more importantly, the kind of life that we want to be living. This is the beginning of the awakening journey for many people, and we don't realize that it is somewhat caused by blindly following the ego all these years. The ego is working non-stop behind the scenes to keep us unaware of its existence so that we can continue to rely and depend on it. It's like a parasite that latches onto our mind. Now, the mind itself is actually a beautiful thing until it's infected by the ego. An ego that can't live on its own, but rather has to live through us. And as we all know, parasites aren't the nicest and most helpful creatures in the world. They drain their victim of all its energy, life, and hope. And similarly, the ego is draining us. We might not realize this, but the ego is dragging us further and further away from finding our true self. Because the more we remain unconscious and under the ego's spell, the less likely we are to actually awaken, to actually discover and experience our true reality. Now, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom here. That's not the purpose here. There is a path to escaping the ego, and we will definitely explore that path in this video series. What I'm merely doing, though, is shedding some light onto the ego's games so that you can realize for yourself that you are way more than you ever thought you were. As the Sufi poet and mystic Rumi said, "Do you know what you are? You are a manuscript of a divine letter. You are a mirror reflecting a noble face. This universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything that you want, you are already that." And that is exactly what we will be doing in these next few videos. We are going to be taking a deep look inside ourselves to find the real universe, to find our real self. When we connect with this inner or real self, we connect with the divine and discover our true identity, nature, and purpose in life. This discovery has the power to help us transcend the ego's influence and achieve true spiritual liberation. It helps us escape the endless cycle of birth and death, or samsara as the Buddhists call it. Because until we discover who we truly are, we are just wandering pointlessly in life. We aren't really living. This is why it's so important to be able to distinguish between the ego and your true self, your soul. One is there to test you, and the other is there to transform you. Both are ironically needed on this journey, but it takes time, patience, and practice to develop awareness of the ego in order to eventually free ourselves from it. So now that you have a better grasp of the true and false self, let's get ready to explore how we can become more aware of this false self. How can we truly know what the ego is, and what are some spiritual practices that can help us on this journey? These will be the topics of the next video, which is part 3 of this series, Awakening Beyond Ego. If you like this video, then please let me know by hitting that like button, sharing this video with your loved ones, and dropping a comment on which part you enjoyed or learned from the most. I say it a lot, but this is truly the part that I love the most, hearing from all of you and discovering how you are navigating on your own spiritual journey. And of course, if you have any questions, which I suspect for a topic like this you might, because it definitely takes more than a single watch to internalize the content, then please don't hesitate to reach out and ask a question as well, and I will definitely do my best to try to answer it. I personally believe these videos are more than just a one-way method of me communicating to you. It's about creating a dialogue, about creating a community, one in which we can all feel safe and supported as we grow and progress on our spiritual journey. Because if it's one thing that I've learned in this life, it's that life is not meant to be lived alone. There is so much we can learn from one another, as long as we are open, humble, and loving. So I thank you all for not only sticking around to the end of this video, but also hearing me out on becoming a part of this community. If you enjoyed this video and want more videos like this that can elevate your spiritual awareness and journey, then please consider becoming a subscriber and hitting that notifications bell so that you can get my weekly videos when they come out. But after all this, I will leave you with a final thought as we wrap things up. Take some time to let this teaching sink in. Unfortunately, it's not enough to just watch a video and then magically find the answers. That rarely happens, at least it hasn't happened in my experience. Instead, you have to immerse yourself in this and let it really take hold in the core of your being. It's like planting a seed and watching it grow into something beautiful over time. So start planting that seed today. Meditate on these words and reflect on what you have just learned or discovered. And above all, don't stress too much if it doesn't all make sense right away. I promise you it will. It will make sense over time. Maybe not to your ego, but to your true self. And that is all that matters. You just have to trust the process, and more importantly, trust the creator that made you, that made your whole life possible, because the divine sees something special in you. Something that is waiting to be awakened. And I really hope that all of these videos can play their part in helping spark this transformation that will unveil the real you.